What is up with it, YouTubes? quattro4life here. Wanted to bring you guys video. Have had questions over the years about my boost gauge, custom in-dash boost gauge. Basically, where the clock used to be, took the clock out, put the boost gauge in there. Always wanted to do that ever since my very first car years and years ago, and a few years back I finally got down to doing it. Definitely custom fit, even the light work. See that? So, been having questions about it, so I figure, it's about time, I just make a video on it to show you guys if it's something you want to try and do yourself. Definitely don't ask me to do it because I don't feel like doing this shit again. It definitely wasn't easy. This is actually version 2.0. I made another one before, but I started having issues. I was having the light leak would come through around the outside of the ring, and kind of didn't like that at night. I wanted it to look, nice and factory like that. So, but before we look into that, we gotta remove the instrument cluster. So that's pretty simple. Pretty much, there's some screws go facing up this way. You have to remove. You can move the steering wheel out. Makes it much easier. Pull it down. Pull the wheel down. Telescopic, if you didn't know. It comes out like that. That'll give you more room. Take this piece off. Remove a few screws, and then the cluster should, wiggle out. Put this down so you don't, damage and scratch up all that shit. But we'll go ahead and get that out, and then we'll take a look at that. Alright, so got these two little 8mm bolts in the bottom right here. They come out, and then from all the way on this side where the corner temperature gauge is, you just pop it out all the way. And then once you pop it out, then you pull it out this way. There's a little piece, a little rod in the end, see that? It goes over here into the corner, right up in there. So, take that out. And there's a couple of Phillips screws holding it in on the front. Go ahead and get those. Right, so with all the screws out, and the steering wheel is all the way out, I put like a little piece right here, just to keep it from scratching all this up. Like that. Alright, so we're just going to wiggle and jiggle. And just gently get it out. Kind of gotta, when you get it out right there, you kind of gotta pull up on the back to get it to come out just like this. And then you just set it, right on here. Because we're gonna have to basically access the side over here to disconnect everything. So just like in my boost gauge video, the vacuum line for the boost gauge comes from the ECU. I basically do it the same way, but on this one I have a quick disconnect right here, if you can see that. So for me, that's the first thing I do, is disconnect that. There you go, see that? So that vacuum line comes from computer, like I said, down there in the floorboard. Alright, so this is the cluster out. This is the little harness, all the connectors for the cluster. I just want to show you, basically this one here you really can only get to with a screwdriver, but it's got this little tab. So the tab is in when it's on there, so you just take a long screwdriver to get behind the cluster and just stick it in between that little tab right there. Try to get it in the light. And just wiggle it like that. See that it pops out? So when that pops out, you just kind of just wiggle it and that'll pop out. And that's pretty much how this one right here is too. Easier to get to. And then these right here, you really just kind of wiggle back and forth and they'll pop off. It's just these little side tabs that hold them on. And then this was the one I was talking about. Just be careful you don't break one of those, one on each side. Just be careful you don't break one of those off. You just squeeze them. It's got little tabs that when you squeeze. So that's pretty much how you get that out. So let's go set the instrument cluster on the bench, and then we'll take a look at what we got going on there. So we got our instrument cluster up here ready to disassemble, to take a look at that. But before we do that, I figure you guys would like to see, I got my compressor housing back from getting professionally polished. Looks very, very good. Figured I'd show that off since this is just sitting up here like a big paperweight anyway. Very, very nice to look at though. Pretty cool. First things first, this is the boost gauge that I used in this car. I also use this one in the S6 series that I do on my friend's black Audi S6. This is the same one. It is Glow Shift brand. This is actual gauge right here. About $40, $45, something like that. eBay, Amazon. You can get it in either the white face like I got for mine, or you can get the black one like this one. So that's pretty much that. So I knew when I started this project to do this boost gauge, I knew I was going to have to cut up a gauge, and you don't want to take like a nice odometer like gauge like that and cut that up, because you don't even know if it's going to be successful or not. So this was the closest match that I could find to the factory gauges, and also like be reasonably priced. So that's pretty much why I went with that. So it's got a little magnifying glass on it, so it looks really good. But in order to get it to fit in here, I basically had to completely disassemble it, use the face of the gauge with the face of the clock gauge. So basically the internals of this are the clock still. I just rebuilt them with the boost gauge. So I'll go ahead and take the cluster out and we'll check that out. Alright, so I got that one side apart, but I did want to show while I'm on the topic the odometer and the 92 to 94 S4. The S6 did not have this odometer. They were all digital by then, but it's still electronic. It's got this little motor that turns the odometer, and it's got this gear in here that turns it. On this little shaft right there, there's a little tiny gear that breaks, and that's the gear that breaks, and then the odometer doesn't work. But when you get it all out, that's basically how it goes back together like that. So what I did with mine, because mine was broken, I took it apart to fix it with another gear, and the other gear ended up breaking too, is I found this place, odometer gears. They actually sell the pieces. I got both of them, the big gear and the small gear, hardened. I think they was like $20 each, $25, something like that. So that's what I've got in mine now, and I haven't had an issue since. Did that a while ago. That's been working pretty good. Alright, here is the cluster for the gauges. What everybody has probably been waiting for, the actual boost gauge itself. This is what it looked like. So to make this work, what I have done is this plastic piece that holds it in here, you can see there's two shafts on there. So these just slide down and fit right in place like that. This is actually from the factory clock. So I removed that from the clock, disassembled the whole boost gauge down to just all the parts. Basically take the face off, the needle out, everything like that. So I've attached the mechanical part along with like the little circuit board, which just kind of, gave it more surface area for me to attach it to the clock. So I've bonded it basically to this clear plastic piece that the clock head was installed on the cluster. And then there was already the hole in the middle for the clock, so I basically just attached the face of the boost gauge onto there. The little ring that you see around there, that is the upgrade that I did, version 2.0, to keep the light from leaking out. It's just like poster board, a couple layers thick, but it's just a ring that go around. It doesn't go all the way in, because then the gauge wouldn't light up. So by doing this way, the factory clock piece will just mount back in there, and since it is clear, the factory light will illuminate the gauge. So that is basically how I got away with getting the power going to the light to turn it on and make it the same color and not be different. But the issue is the circuit board. You basically have to cut a hole to make it fit in the circuit board, and the problem with that, like you can see right here, that square is basically the same hole. This is just another factory circuit board. So that square right there is where I've cut the other ones, and if you see the ribbons, it's basically a flat wire. The ribbons go right through where I need that hole. So basically what I've done with mine is cut the ribbons and then just resolder a wire. You can see there's just a couple of wires. They're basically just making the contact because those ribbons go to the other gauges to make them work. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much it. It is actually pretty simple. Like I said, this is version 2.0. I had one before and it was just okay, and I took it all back apart to kind of make it better, and ever since then, you know, version 2 has been the best one. I also added just this little line, so that way when you take it out, you're not having to pull it off the gauge every time. It's kind of hard. So by having this little plastic line in here, it makes it easier to remove the instrument cluster without, you know, damaging the gauge inside. So that's just one thing that I did. But basically this slides through, pops on like that. So the other issue I had at first was the spacing. So if it sits in too far, which was my problem, the light will leak around. So what I've done, at the bottom of the shaft you can see the little O-rings on both of them, and that just basically acts like a spacer, so it just lines up perfectly with the other gauges, so it doesn't look out of place, makes it look, you know, nice and factory like you guys have seen on my other videos. But yeah, I had to take all this bullshit apart anyway, so figured I would just show you guys that. I've had questions about it, so go ahead and do a little video on that. Appreciate all the likes, comments, everything on last video. Seemed to be doing pretty successful with that those type of videos, so gonna be doing some stuff like that pretty soon here. So just wanted to say thanks for stopping by, watching. Appreciate everybody. You guys are the shit. So I just hope everybody have a very good day.